Good hustle.
Football training camps. A sure sign that summer's scalding days will soon give way to Friday night lights. This rite of passage is the first step for thousands of young men who suit up to chase gridiron glory.
You gotta beat them now. Let's go. Come on.
Football season is almost here.
Defense! Defense!
Football is our country's most popular sport, its grandest game.
Go.
But in recent years, there have been troubling signs on the horizon.
Go.
Numbers of kids signing up are dwindling. Injuries have raised concern amongst players, their families, and fans. And now, a new diagnosis has many who love the game questioning whether it is worth it.
I don't want any other parents to ever have to go through this.
We're at the point where we really have to address this as a public health concern.
But in the midst of that worry, signs of hope. Experts and average Joes working together to try to make our most physical pastime safer.
Jumbo right, Texas left on one-on-one.
As the new season dawns, we investigate impact, concussions, CTE, and the fight to save football. Baseball may be America's national pastime, but there's little doubt that football is the game of the present. From coast to coast, nothing ignites fans' passions quite like the game of football, whether it's Friday night lights or sun-drenched Saturdays, or all of the passion that comes with NFL games on Sunday and Monday nights. Look at how much money the game brings in. Record viewership and record ad dollars for the Super Bowl. You're talking about college football coaches making almost $10 million a year. And of course, the athletic departments that rake in money that can afford all the other sports they pay for year in and year out. College football is as popular as it's ever been. The pro game is off the charts, but there are concerns about this game. It's always been a violent game. Injuries are a part of this game. And more recently, head injuries and concussions have risen to the top. It's an issue that's long been downplayed, but now is being taken very, very seriously. We're talking tonight about football, but concussions are an issue in all contact sports, whether you talk about rugby or soccer or hockey, any of those events. But with the popularity of football, the concussion discussion really has a focal point right here. So let's begin there by talking about what exactly is a concussion.
A concussion is an insult to the brain where there's either an object striking the brain or the brain hitting the ground or rotational forces like a whiplash type of injury.
These were happening before. We'd call it bell rung. We'd say he's just a little bit funny. We wouldn't diagnose it as concussion. You know, we used to, if you don't get knocked out, it's not a concussion. That's just not true. But that's the way we used to think, that you had to have something bad happen, like loss of consciousness, to be able to recognize that.
With subsequent concussions, the symptoms just get more magnified. Plus there's a risk for potential hemorrhage or serious brain injury.
Treatment for concussions really unusual. It's rest. And rest means no video games, no cell phone. Concussion often means no talking, no reading, no watching TV. It means brain rest. And that's the treatment. I mean, there's no medicine that fixes it. There's no things that speed it along. It is rest.
So how often do they actually happen? Statistics show 1 in 5 high school athletes will sustain a sports concussion during their season. 47% of those athletes do not report feeling any symptoms after a concussive blow. The CDC says 90% of concussions do not involve a loss of consciousness. Next, on impact.
He'd tell you a story, he'd repeat things, and he'd lose things.
Haunting memories of a family member slipping away.
And he said, I feel like I'm dying.
Barney Sash opens up about her son's struggle with a disease caused by the sport he loved.
Tyler told me, he said, Mom, my kids will never play football.
Her emotional message.
It's too late for my son, but there's a lot of other people's sons out there.
His was just a really striking case.
Plus, hear from the Boston doctor who has diagnosed CTE more than 200 times.
I think if you play football long enough, your chance of getting this is very high.
How she hopes her research can make the game safer. You're watching Impact on KCCI. From Oskaloosa to Iowa City and on to the NFL, Tyler Sash made quite a name for himself playing the game of football. But KCCI's Laura Terrell says those closest to him hope Tyler's biggest impact will come off the field.
Known for his incredible interceptions and his punishing hits, Tyler Sash became one of the most exciting Hawkeye playmakers of the Kirk Ferentz era.
Bend but don't break, and we came out and we got the win.
From an early age, his natural athletic ability was obvious.
Our two older kids were really athletic, and so when he came along, you know, we expected he'd be athletic, but he was like a step above.
Growing up in Oskaloosa, Sash started playing football in the 5th grade. By the time he got to high school, Sash was making headlines, an all-state player in both basketball and football.
Just decked him straight into the official on the sidelines.
But most Iowans know Sash as number 9, an all Big Ten strong safety who never shied away from contact. Sash left Iowa after his junior season and was picked by the New York Giants in the 6th round of the 2011 NFL Draft. It was in the NFL that he would suffer one of his most brutal hits, getting knocked out cold in the NFC Championship.
Tyler called me a little while after that. He goes, "Mom, I'm okay." He said, "Really, I'm okay. I don't have a concussion." I'm like, "Right, Ty." And they're in denial because next game is the Super Bowl.
2 weeks later, Sash became a Super Bowl champion and returned to his hometown as a hero, even receiving the key to the city of Oskaloosa.
Definitely going to be put on the top shelf.
But in 2013, Sash's NFL career came to an end. He was suspended for 4 games after testing positive for Adderall. The Giants then cut him from the team right before he would have started his 3rd season in the NFL.
He was always so kind and good and sweet and loving.
But those closest to Sash noticed a change. He became aggressive and angry and couldn't explain why. One day he lashed out at his mother on their way to the doctor, a story Barney Sash hasn't told until now.
He started like screaming at me and swearing at me, and he never swore at me. He didn't hardly ever swear. And I went home and it was devastating. And then later that day, that evening, he texted me and he said, "Mom, I am so sorry." He said, "I don't know why I did that."
He often seemed confused, forgetful, and disoriented.
In all honesty, I just thought it was the pain medication. I just thought that is what changed my son, was the pain medication.
Sash was still taking painkillers for chronic shoulder pain. He had surgery on both shoulders during his time at Iowa, but the pain never stopped, something Tyler's family says he hid from them.
You want this? Give me kisses. Give me kisses.
Labor Day weekend, Barney came over to Tyler's house to walk his dog. Instead, she walked in to find her son dead on his couch.
And I opened the door, and I could see him. And I knew he was gone the minute I opened the door, because he'd been gone for a couple of days.
Tyler Sash was just 27 years old. The medical examiner said he died from an accidental overdose, a powerful mix of 2 drugs, methadone and hydrocodone.
You know, he couldn't wait to get married. He couldn't wait to have kids. But he wasn't able to have a future.
Just feet from where he died, football memorabilia, pictures, and awards now sit in a spare room of Tyler's house. In the months that followed, his family began to search for answers as to what else led to their son's death. Tyler Sash's family decided to send his brain here to the VA Brain Bank in Bedford, Massachusetts, where Dr. Ann McKee is leading the charge in diagnosing and studying CTE.
It is a neurodegenerative disease, CTE. So it's a disease that is caused by trauma.
Dr. McKee, a neuropathologist who also teaches at Boston University, has examined the brains of nearly 300 football players. She's diagnosed around 200 with CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, and she says Tyler Sash was one of the worst cases given his young age. Microscopic slides of his brain tell the story.
You can immediately see these brown, dark brown areas. You should not be able to see that at all. And the fact that you can see it with the naked eye without even a microscope is because the lesion is so dense.
Sash's largest lesion was on his frontal lobe, the part of the brain that controls cognitive functions like emotion, memory, and judgment.
You look at the lesion and you just wonder what was that like for him? How, to live with that in his brain. What was that like?
Sash's family had no idea it was that bad.
Even though we sent his brain in, we really didn't expect that.
CTE is caused by repeated trauma to the brain over a period of time. A buildup of abnormal protein eats away at the brain cells and can eventually cause Alzheimer's-like symptoms.
When you see this and you see this in a 27-year-old, you say to yourself, we've got to do something about this. This can't be happening to our athletes.
Dr. McKee says it doesn't have to be concussions. CTE can be caused by what she calls the smaller subconcussive hits. Some athletes endure hundreds, even thousands over their career.
I think if you play football long enough, your chance of getting this is very high.
CTE can only be diagnosed after death, but many former NFL players say they've experienced memory loss, and that makes them worry about the long-term health effects of the sport.
Repetitive head trauma chokes the brain.
As shown in the movie Concussion, some players have even committed suicide in a way that preserves their brain so it can be studied by scientists like Dr. McKee.
It looks really like there's been a lot of shrinkage. Extremely small in the front.
Dr. McKee showed us the brain of an NFL player. We don't know whose brain it is or how he died. Dr. McKee purposefully doesn't find out until after she examines it. She doesn't know for sure yet, but she suspects this brain has CTE.
Wow. So this is a really small brain. You can see the hole. You see that hole right there? That's an abnormal hole. It shouldn't be there.
Half the brain will be dissected and studied under a microscope. The other half will go in this freezer set at -80 degrees.
I'd never forget that these are people. They're not just brains and pieces of tissue. They're definitely, to me, they're people.
Dr. McKee has already found CTE in football players as young as 17 and 18 years old.
There's no question I wouldn't let any of my relatives play football. It's just too dangerous.
Barney Sash couldn't agree more.
I've always loved football. It's part of our culture. And I understand people not wanting you to ruin that for their child. But I've come to a point that I'm sorry, but I care more about your child as a person than a football player and the fact that they could have a future, because my son didn't have a future.
Dr. McKee is still studying the prevalence of the disease. It's unclear what percentage of football players will actually develop CTE, but she knows the percentage is high.
This can't be rare. It's got to be common, and I think we're at the point where we really have to address this as a public health concern for our young student athletes.
And you see a world where someday down the road that your research will help reverse the effects of this?
Yeah, that's the whole point. The whole point of this is to have kids play sports and have them play safely.
While it's too late for Tyler Sash, Barney hopes that with all this research, someday someone else's son can be saved.
For all of those other young men, I still hope that they can find something to help them so that they can live a full life.
Dr. McKee wants all football players to have a future as well, and some things that she wants to change to make the game safer. She wants the field to be bigger, she wants the season to be shorter, and she wants to take the tackling out of football.
Which doesn't seem very likely. Two of those things are possible, I suppose. I don't know that the third is. I don't know that they'll ever take tackling out of it. Dr. McKee professes herself as a big football fan, or used to be. Is that right?
That is right. She grew up in Green Bay, Wisconsin, huge Packers fan, loves football, but she said she knows so much now that she can't even watch the sport.
Okay, so CTE has come into our consciousness in the last 10 years. How far into this are we? I mean, it feels like we're just kind of scratching the surface.
That is very true, scratching the surface. Dr. McKee examined her first brain in 2008, so it's really only been about 8 years in scientific standards. That's kind of a short amount of time. Her goal is to examine thousands of brains. She wants to see if there's a genetic link to this as well. She wants to keep studying and keep seeing what she can find out.
Probably more questions than answers right now.
Definitely.
Laura, thank you very much. Tyler Sash is not the only CTE story to tell.
It was very difficult to see. Strong young man, very intelligent, really go downhill so quickly.
Next, Mark Tauschek introduces us to the Easter family. Their son is gone, but his message lives on, what the Indianola grad wants young athletes to know. We want to know what you think. With all of the new research on the damage concussions can cause, are you concerned about your child playing football? Jenny says, I am trying to keep my 9-year-old away from playing football because of the dangers. But Josh counters, football made me a better person. The life lessons it taught me are unmatched by any other sport I played. Your child has a better chance of getting injured in a car crash. Should you not let him or her drive? If you live your life in fear of what might happen, then you aren't really living. Aaron says, my 10-year-old is playing football and it's his 3rd season this year. There are risks with everything we do in life. It's all about if you think the risk is worth it or not. And Jenny says, we chose not to allow our 3rd grader to play for this reason. We have decided he won't play till much later. Continue the conversation on our Facebook page and on Twitter using the hashtag KCCI Sports. The effects of CTE have been well documented among famous professional athletes, but the degenerative brain disease has devastated regular Iowa families as well. KCCI's Mark Tauschek joins us now here on Impact with the story of a family from Indianola that has a heartbreaking cautionary tale.
Well, Andy, Zach Easter suffered at least 5 concussions as a football player in Indianola. At age 24, he took his own life. This summer, his family got word from the California lab of Dr. Bennett Amalu, the neuropathologist who discovered CTE, that after studying Zach's brain, he did indeed have chronic traumatic encephalopathy.
Zach Easter's devotion to football started in 3rd grade. One of those kids in the middle of the action, hitting, getting hit.
He's a young man who loved the sport, who, like any other athlete, didn't want to take themselves out of a game unless somebody made him.
Zach played for 10 years until he was forced to stop in the middle of his senior year at Indianola High School.
He had three confirmed concussions his senior year, and he had to quit.
That's Zach, number 44, during his final game, not backing down from an Ankeny lineman towering over him.
I knew that last one was not good, you know, at Ankeny, but I could just see the look.
By the fall of 2014, Zach was complaining of severe headaches, problems with balance, his vision.
Memory loss. I'm having a hard time remembering things. I'm having some slurred speech.
It was a Des Moines doctor who first mentioned CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy.
I remember looking at Zach and I said, what exactly is CTE? And he goes, it's like brain dementia, Mom.
Of course, Mom went looking for help, research, answers, and she discovered what her son already understood.
He just looked at me and he said, Mom, there's no hope for me. There are no treatment programs.
Last fall, as he got worse, Zach moved back home.
It was very difficult to see. Strong young man, very intelligent, really go downhill so quickly.
Just after midnight on December 19th, Zach drove to Lake Aquabi and shot himself. He left a note in his car apologizing to the first responders and called the sheriff's dispatch to tell them where he was.
They heard the gunshot go off on the phone.
We drove out there as fast as we could, and it was too late.
Zach shot himself in the chest, taking care not to damage his brain, preserving it for research. He left 2 notebooks in the family room. In Zach's writings, he expresses his desire to tell young athletes it's okay to tell coaches if you're dizzy or have a headache, okay to take yourself off the field, wanting to tell everyone that all those concussions changed him, that helmets need to be safer, and more research needs to be done on CTE.
I feel like if we could make some of these things happen, it's our gift back to our son. And that's all we can give him right now.
Zach Easter's parents have been working hard to fulfill their son's wish. They're starting a nonprofit called CTE Hope. One of their first projects was fundraising $1,000 to give to a pilot study at Simpson College. It's going on right now. They're trying to determine if biomarkers in an athlete's saliva can be used to detect concussions. If that data comes back with positive results, it would likely move on to a larger clinical trial. So it's great that the parents are able to continue their son's last wish like this, and on some level, I'm sure, is definitely helping them with the healing process as well.
And this is the biggest key with CTE, is finding out a way to diagnose it before an athlete has passed away.
Right on the sideline.
That's right. Mark, thank you very much.
Do any of you have CTE concerns?
Coming up, we sit down with former football players to get their take.
I can remember many times playing linebacker, hitting someone and getting up and I could just feel the bells ringing and the dark spots and you shake it off. Any regrets for anybody? Would you do it all again?
The lessons and the teachings that you get from the sport far outweigh the physical risks that physical and psychological risks you're taking when you're doing that.
Back then, it wasn't as safe. Even concussion protocol today is a lot better than it was back then. I remember playing with a headache most of the time, or either coming home with one.
Welcome back to Impact. You just heard Chuck Long talk about his experience as a college football player. I want to bring in Marcus McIntosh, a 4-year Division I college football veteran who certainly has a unique perspective on this issue especially.
I sure do, Andy. And I mean, having played for 4 years, a long time ago, back in the, I was going to say the 80s, but a long time ago, you have bumps, you have bruises, you have head injuries, you have concussions, and that makes me think about later in life what's going to happen and what the effect's going to have, what an effect that is rather going to have on me. So we gathered up a bunch of former players and we talked about issues including injuries, especially head injuries.
I know I've had plenty of concussions, and we've all played in that same era where ammonia was the thing.
Be tough, get back out there.
I mean, you had to suck it up. Be tough. Do this, do that. I mean, it wasn't. It was more prevalent back then to play with a concussion, which we didn't know it was a concussion. So, I mean, I can remember many times playing linebacker, hitting someone and getting up and I could just feel the bells ringing and the dark spots, and you shake it off and you sniff the ammonia and boom, you're right back on the football field.
I felt my head ring. I think we all have. Whether that's a concussion or not, I don't know. That's just, we're competitors. We want to get back out there and play. The last thing we want to do is head to the sideline and watch these guys play that we work, year round to be out there playing. So I think it's just part of the competitor in all of us. We don't want to walk to the bench and give up what we've worked for.
How do we make kids better understand the severity of what was going on so the innate competitiveness that Levi was talking about doesn't take over? There's a big movement now in educating on what the severity of this thing you're dealing with actually is and how to potentially stop the severity of it before it gets there. And I think that's currently the movement where that's going, which is, it's a great place to be.
Concussions have been there from way before all of us played football, back when they had leather helmets. That was before all of our times. There were concussions then. There's concussions today, and now are we more advanced about the concussions? Yes, because of the medical staff and all the professionals that are out there on the medical side, but it happens in every sport. So it would be nice for somebody to always say that, listen, it's not just football that the concussions happen in, it happens in any sport.
Because head injuries are so prevalent across the board, whether you're rollerblading your dogs or whether you're playing football, one of the things that you really strive to do is you're trying to reach a relative level of safety that is acceptable. And I think that's why, that's what all the proactivity is going into with education and alerting people and what's going on. You're never, ever going to be able to get rid of concussions. You're not. No matter what you're doing, if you're getting out of the bathtub, you can't get rid of concussions because stuff happens. But if you can treat what to do with it and educate what to do with it better, then that's what you're out for, and that's kind of lowering the risk. So it's not every single play you're going to sustain one. Now it's lowering the risk to, let's make this acceptable that not every single guy on every single play is going to take a substantial head impact, and we can reduce the total number and then treat the ones that happen.
These coaches now, all the way down to Pop Warner, have to learn and teach your kids how to tackle properly. I think the tackling's changed, the way they're teaching it. Everything right now is keeping that head out of the contact of the game. You know, just trying to get your head out from making contact with anything. And I think all levels are pushing for that. I think the game is getting safer. They're trying to keep people from using that helmet as a weapon because it became a weapon. It did. The thicker the helmet got, the more it became a weapon for people.
It's a physical sport. It is football. There is contact, so something's going to happen. I mean, you're just going back to you can't get rid of it.
We don't want to scare parents because it is become safer. The protocol, the emphasis is the protocol has gotten better. Back then, you know, we had to cover one eye, and if we could read the scoreboard, we were back in the game. It's so much better today. You know, today if a youngster gets a headache,
there's a protocol.
Yeah, there's going to be. They might be out a week. They might be out 2 weeks before that doctor's going to let that youngster back on. So that's been the change as I've seen it over time, which would really help because we've turned out pretty good. You know, we've had a lot of hits,
but we can't
it's
talk
gotten better.
Concussions without talking about fears over CTE. Do you have any fears or concerns that later on in life? Because I mean, I get headaches sometimes. I think, well, could this be happening to me? Does anybody else feel that way?
I don't think about it. You know, it's one of those things. You think about any health issue, you sit around and let it bother you all day long. But I don't.
Levi?
No, I don't think so. You know, I think no one made me play football. I chose to play it. I love the game. You know, we all have injuries. But I don't think any of us would go back and change what we did or where we played college football or what sport we played because, you know, we all had a good time and we all did what we wanted and accomplished what we wanted. So if this is what we have to live with right now, I think it's just the way it is.
Would you let your kids play football or do you regret letting your kids play football?
I have no regrets. I more so, I taught my kids, you know, how to play the game of football without hurting themselves and protecting the kids that they play against. And so therefore, I think they have learned the things that I knew and that I was taught on how to protect and how to play the game at a very high level and still become very successful at it.
You know, if they're sitting there looking at playing college baseball or college football and what's your opinion on this, I'd probably say play baseball, you know, no, I think I'd be totally supportive if they wanted to play football.
I think for me, the lessons of hard work and the lessons of dedication and perseverance and competitiveness and always being the best you can, those lessons have shaped my life in far more ways than the risks of, you know, maybe having a sore back or having a tight ankle could ever impact me negatively.
I would echo what Jeff Woody's saying. You know, playing football for a lot of years, you feel like you've given a lot to the sport. It gives a lot back to you in terms of camaraderie, friendships, and things you've learned. It allows you to get an education for free, and that's something you just can't pass up, Andy. I mean, I do it all over again, despite, you know, a sore shoulder and headaches sometimes, and, you know, kind of getting up in the morning is kind of a pain, but, you know, I would do it all again.
Marcus, appreciate your insight, and thanks very much to our panelists as well. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll hear from some of the leading neurologists in the country. What did they say about the concussion situation in football? Plus, a local high school football legend on making the game safer. And this, on the mission to lessen the blows.
We can design a helmet that can minimize concussions and long-term brain injury.
2 Carroll residents are teaming up to develop a safer helmet. How it works, the top young minds helping them out, and when they hope to have it ready to hit the field. You're watching Impact on KCCI. Welcome back to Impact. We understand that concussions and CTE are such a crucial issue facing all of sports, but especially the game of football. But Tony Seaman found that some of the brightest minds in the head sciences come together every year, and they're working on finding an answer and making the game safer.
You can't open a magazine, a newspaper, or turn on the TV without hearing the word concussion.
The brightest minds in the world of neurology came to Chicago to hit the classroom. One thing's obvious, concussions are nothing new. The knowledge is.
Something we always knew about boxing since the original studies in the 1920s. So it's now suddenly risen to that occasion.
I think that it's become a lot more publicized lately because of the number of studies they've been doing in the professional sports, especially within football.
Military participation in the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan really put traumatic brain injury in the public eye. Before that, we called it the silent epidemic.
The silence now has a voice, and from youth all the way to pro, everyone is listening.
I mean, when did you ever see that someone who reaches the highest point in their career as a professional football player suddenly abandons that career because of concern over concussion?
Perception has magnified the problem more than what really is, at a scientific and a medical level present.
The science keeps on improving, whether it's quicker reaction times, longer resting periods between concussions, sideline testing, the list goes on and on. The simple key from the experts, the sooner you see it, the better.
If concussions are identified early and if they are treated appropriately, the vast majority do not have to be anything that changes somebody's life and can be played. You can continue to play the sports afterwards.
Over the last 10 to 15 years, our knowledge about concussions and brain injuries in general and recovery from these injuries really has grown exponentially. And so we understand now how to better diagnose this injury and how to better treat them.
Is football dangerous? Of course. But before you look at all the cons,
there are a lot of benefits to playing sports. There are a lot of benefits to playing contact sports. And we need to understand both sides of the equation.
The concussion fight is far from over. But the top minds just keep moving forward.
There's no question that things are better off today than there were maybe 10 years ago as far as awareness, our approach to diagnosing and managing injuries. The flip side of that, though, is that there's a lot of, I would say, misinformation and a lot of almost over-concern.
And the final question that everyone loves to ask when it comes to concussions in football, would you let your kid put on that helmet?
Both of my sons play hockey and my oldest plays football. So, and not that my opinion should have any more weight, but I know this information very well and I know the data very well.
A big decision to make when you decide what sport your child should play. And it's an important decision as your child, as you're parenting and being a good parent to investigate these things.
In 5-10 years from now, the discussion will be very different because I think our knowledge of how to prevent these injuries is really moving forward very rapidly. And so we'll be talking more about prevention and not simply about recovery.
While the neurologists come up with the standards, it's really up to the guys at the grassroots level to change the game of football. And that's exactly what the Heads Up football program has started to do. One of the pioneers of that program coaches right here at Valley Stadium.
I think football became an easy target.
Throughout his storied career, Gary Swenson has spent a lot of time watching football.
Us in the football world really did a lot of this to ourselves by the way we were approaching the game, the way we were teaching it. The coaching at the youth level was all over the map and how it was done. There's some real horror stories out there about youth football. This is a really important time for this game right now.
It's got to be done quickly. Heads Up Football was born. It's a movement by the USA Football governing body. It aims to educate youth coaches to have better knowledge of potential medical issues and safer and more effective playing techniques.
The best thing about this is it's getting a lot of us that teach the game on the same page and about how we teach skills and fundamentals and what type of emphasis we're placing on the health and safety of our players.
Swenson says he believes the game is safer now than it has been in a long time, thanks in part to better teaching and more knowledge.
Clearly we don't know everything about CTE or about just concussions, but the information that we do have today is so much more advanced and plentiful than we had 15, 20 years ago. I believe that what we're doing today is on the right track. There's still a lot of doomsayers out there that will profess that the game will not be around in 10 or 15 years. But I'm here to tell you tackle football will continue to be played at the high school level, at the collegiate level, and in the NFL long after all of us are gone.
Teaching better technique will certainly help limit injuries down the road, but one thing that would be a game changer would be safer equipment. KCCI's Scott Reister says a couple of Central Iowans believe they've found a way to make a safer helmet.
Over and over again, these Cyclone students are using science to develop what is known as the safe helmet.
You get it turned on, pull the cord, and turn it off. And so right now what we got is a big jumble of numbers.
Two Carroll residents started the project 2 years ago. Kim Baker is a sports reporter. Jerry Jansen is a former college coach. Both are passionate about the cause.
Participation is going down. How ironic is that? I mean, that could be the demise of football in that someday, unless there's some way to come up with a solution to be able to protect the brain from concussions.
We thought we can design a helmet that can minimize concussions and long-term brain injuries. So Jerry and I brought this to Iowa State because of being one of the top engineering schools in the United States, and they said, we love the idea.
Last fall, their company partnered with the ISU School of Engineering's Capstone program. That's where these guys come in.
Analyze it and see the peak, mean, and average accelerations felt inside the head for all of the different helmets on the market today.
By collecting droves of data on all the helmets out there, they have a better roadmap on how to continue development of their safe helmet prototype.
This is what your head feels inside this helmet during a standard impact in football. As you see, we have a range. The lower you go on this end, the better the helmet performed in this test.
The project just picked up even more speed. It was selected for the inaugural ISU Startup Factory, which means their partnership with Iowa State will expand and grow for another year. The goal is to have a viable product by the end of spring 2017. The current prototype is already testing better than the current manufactured helmets they have on hand. So what's going into their safe helmet? They can't go into great detail yet because of proprietary reasons. They can say
Some materials are soft, for example, that will get hard upon impact, utilizing some type of a mechanical type of thing to help control the movement of the helmet.
the way they're running these experiments here at Iowa State is nothing short of fascinating. They want the best safe helmet they can have. And if they design the right prototype, they know it will have a direct impact on the future of football.
We will be providing an alternative for society to believe that they can feel comfortable in knowing that they're not going to potentially have a long-term brain injury because of a hit.
Next on Impact.
So if your legs weren't tired, it'll make your arms tired now.
A resource right here in Central Iowa.
Still seeing a big reaction when we get too close.
Where student athletes can recover and rehabilitate from brain injuries. Plus, hear firsthand from an Iowa teen.
I never realized that my memory could be this compromised.
Experiencing her third concussion. Welcome back to Impact. So the question is, what's a student athlete supposed to do once they've actually suffered a concussion? KCCI's Kim St. Ange shows us there's a comprehensive clinic right here in Central Iowa dedicated to getting student athletes fully recovered and back in the classroom and on the field.
Are you ready to try? Here we go. So as fast as you can. There you go.
Ashley Job is no stranger to concussions.
Think we can go 2 minutes? I want to kind of exhaust you.
Neither is Jamie Randall.
It's been a little while.
Jamie, at just age 14, is on concussion number 3. She's one of the more than 100 patients Job has seen in the 11 months since the concussion clinic opened at Child Serve in Johnston.
At the time of the evaluation, we put them through everything because we want to see where they're at initially.
Initially, Jamie's athletic skills were almost unrecognizable.
It's all right, 5 seconds left.
The first time I came here was kind of a train wreck because my stats were so low, I wasn't feeling good.
Today, after about a month of making the trip from Panora 2 times a week, a different story.
You only got 52 lights last time and you got 105 today. That's a lot of improvement in just a week.
Patients at the clinic work with physicians, therapists like Job, and social workers to minimize the effects of the injury and help them recover safely at their own pace.
Kids were put back into play quickly, and now we're appreciating that there are symptoms that are lasting a longer period of time.
So instead of racing the clock on the hardwood or turf, patients like Jamie adjust to challenges in the form of blinking lights and push buttons.
I'm going to start moving it in, so we're using more of that central vision. You're doing awesome.
It's called Dyno Vision. It tests your ability to make and process decisions. Key when you're on the court.
46201.
And most importantly, it increases stimulation for the brain so it can keep healing.
So where would you rate your headaches?
3.
How about pressure in your head?
2.
Keeping an eye on symptoms is also crucial to chart progress and help the team at the clinic determine when athletes can return to the game.
Tell me when you start to see kind of double vision or it gets really blurry.
Blurry.
Okay, are you seeing double?
Yeah.
And 18, you okay?
Yeah.
On average, patients can suit back up after about a month, but that's not always the case.
We've heard reports of, gosh, it took me a year to recover from this last one.
Jamie came back from her first concussion in about a week, her second in about 3 months, both on the soccer field. She hasn't played since, instead turning to the basketball court, where again, everything went black.
I got knocked back and nailed my head pretty hard.
This time felt different.
I'm very irritable now. I have a very short temper. I used to be this happy kid, but now anything can make me snap.
A side of concussions often hidden.
A lot of people don't even think about and you don't see is the social emotional piece. The emotional effect that it has on these kids is huge. Are you ready?
Jamie says her short-term memory is shot, sleep is hard to come by, reading is a challenge, and the headaches?
My headaches are a constant throb. They start in my temples and then they work back behind my eyes. Sometimes when they get really bad, I almost black out because it's just blurry vision.
With a broken limb, you have a cast, a big cut, staples, visual signs of healing. For a parent watching your child recover from a brain injury, it can be hard to perceive.
You just don't know. As much as you want to help her, you can't put her on crutches and say, go walk or do whatever you can do, because you don't know how they feel.
For Jamie's father, scary is an understatement.
You'd like it to be you. But you can't. I was there shortly after the incident happened at the hospital, and really makes you pause. And I think it made Jamie pause as well.
The nice thing about a concussion is it can heal and you can get back to, the functional level you were at before. But you have to do that in a, stepwise approach, taking the time to get there and not rushing it.
Jamie hopes she can play all 3 sports again as she prepares for her freshman year at Panorama High School. But she's cautious.
I never thought I'd say this, but I'm kind of scared to go back because I know what it's done to me, which I don't want to go through it again.
The Randalls are already seeing signs of improvement and hope patience pays off.
Good job, 103, you beat it. All right.
ChildServe here in Johnston is one of 9 providers statewide to use the Impact Neurocognitive Test. Coming up, a brand new statewide coalition aimed at tackling the concussion crisis. The concern over concussions has reached a statewide high school level. More than 20 organizations have teamed up to join the Iowa Concussion Coalition. KCCI's Tony Seaman went to Cedar Rapids to find out more about the new protocol they're preparing to roll out.
And we will be looking at your eyes.
Concussion science grows by the second, and that can make things confusing.
We need to be able to get on the same page with how we're responding to concussion and other brain injuries.
1, 2, 3. And you're going to tell me if you're dizzy with that.
What do symptoms look like? Do you put them back in a game? Do you keep them awake? The questions go on and on.
Medicine's a team sport, and it'll put us all on the same team talking the same language.
That's where the REAP protocol comes in. The goal is to get teachers, coaches, training and medical staff, and also families all up to date on all things concussion.
Get on the same page with nationally and internationally recognized best practices, medical practices, for how to assess levels of concussion.
Physician, the nurse, the parents, the school can all have the same language and address these problems.
And how to handle that, how to manage that from a medical standpoint, but also how to manage that from an academic and institutional aspect from the schools.
Over the next few months, the goal is to put the REAP program in every school district in the state to get everyone on the same page.
When they have signs, symptoms, or behaviors related to concussion, how to bring them back into athletic play, but also, as importantly, how to bring them back into school. We're working to give a consistent message.
The discussion about concussions in contact sports continues on and will go on for many years to come, but the important thing is there's more and more information coming out every day. If you'd like more information, you can always check out our website, kcci.com, and join us now on our Facebook page for a live Q&A as we break down some of the things we've talked about over the last hour and answer some of your questions. Thank you so much for joining us on Impact.